Welcome, Maurice. He is going to be our Toastmaster for tonight.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Well, can you pass me one of those?
Yeah.
Okay, good morning or good evening, fellow Toastmasters. Again, the roles, Justin is general evaluator and speech evaluator. I, of course, am the Toastmaster. Cody is the Table Topics Master, and Justin is also the grammarian and the all-counter, and Cody's the timer also. So it's and our speaker, or one speaker for tonight, is Don, and I will introduce him in a minute. No educational overview, I assume. No awards. Well, you got your level 1, but I don't know if there's a formal certificate for level 1.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can check if Lawrence accepted it or not. I think he had to go in a group.
Oh, okay. Okay, without further ado, I would like to introduce the speaker for tonight. And this is a new member of the club. And he's diving in head first into it. He'll be doing his icebreaker speech. So our speaker for tonight is Don.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Happy Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
My name is Don Morosco, and I have been with the Hilltoppers for a few weeks now. I learned of this group through the Leadership Development Program I am currently in with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I am required to attend Toastmasters twice a month, perform the various job duties that entail, and complete a Pathways program. However, I don't plan to just do the minimum. I want to get more out of this, and I have seen in the last few weeks the benefits that can come from my weekly participation. Like you said, go all in. My goals are professional development, to improve my public speaking skills, and to learn from others to improve my own life. So where do I go from here? In order for me to answer that question, I have to first understand where I am and how I got here. I'm 42 years old and I come from Sodus, New York, which is a small rural town in upstate New York on Lake Ontario. My father was in the Navy Seabees, and we moved around a lot following my birth and growing up in Sodus, New York. We moved to places such as Oxnard, California, to West Palm Beach, Florida, to Chicago, Illinois for high school, and down to Mobile, Alabama, where I have been for the last 20 years, in which case is enough time for my speech to have slowed, according to my New York family. I have been married to an incredible woman for 16 years now. And we have 2 children, my daughter Lexi, who is 13 years old, and my son Keaton, who is 9 years old. I enjoy spending time with my family whenever I have some free time. Right now it doesn't seem to be that much, and if I can squeeze out a little bit more free time, I like to train for and race Ironman triathlons. Fitness is a big part of who I am, and when I step back and I look as I grew up, I believe that I was a good student. I played a lot of sports, but I wouldn't say I had a view of the big picture. I would say that I had grown up with potential unfulfilled. I've never really had a plan or was able to see the bigger picture. Even when I went to college, I would say that I wandered without a clear purpose. I graduated from USA in 2001 with degrees in environmental biology and chemistry. I spent time working for the Dauphin Island Sea Lab after that for some research PhDs. I enjoyed that work. all except for the part of the inconsistency and relatively low pay of it. Following that, in 2003, I completed another degree in secondary education science, in which case I taught for a few years. And I really enjoyed that, but it didn't really solve my first problem, which was identified as my daughter was approaching, and me and my wife had to prepare for her birth. So following that, I made a move to work as a biologist for the state. And I was there for a few years before I went to where I am now with the Army Corps of Engineers. I would still consider myself fortunate to basically have wandered so aimlessly about to find myself in a situation to where I can still improve myself, which is where I am today. So I have worked as a biologist and project manager for the Corps for over 11 years now, and it has been during the last couple of years that I have learned to see the bigger picture and review my life accordingly. I have been assessing my career, my children's future, my finances, as well as my own goals and desires. I began 2018 with the goal of eliminating debt and improving my life organization. I traveled to Puerto Rico, where I worked for a few months. During my time there, I learned so much, and perspective is what I learned the most. After I came home, I realized I needed to make some changes for my own improvement, and I left my position in the regulatory division and took another in the planning division. This afforded me the ability to work with new people, learn new things, and take on some rather large civil works projects for the Corps. I also joined the leadership development program that brought me here to the Hilltoppers as I am now. I have a goal for 2019 that will see me establish myself in my new position, become debt-free, save for my kids' college, and prepare for my own future security. I have learned that I need to be more on offense rather than defense, and plan ahead instead of merely reacting. With motivation on my side, I am excited now, and I am very busy and often very tired, but I am now in more control of my future than I have been at any point in my time. I will focus even more on my job, at being a better husband and father. Make decisions with clarity of purpose and need. I strive to be flexible and adapt to the changes that will come unexpectedly. I will continue to grow and learn as much as possible and transfer this to my children so that they will be more apt for success than I was. Motivation is a fickle thing. When you have it on your side, take advantage of it. So basically, I was surprised how this speech ended up. I expected it to be more about my hobbies and more interesting subjects. But my current life's focus and energy ended up on the pages. This little project of this icebreaker speech helped me to reflect on my life growing up all the way until today. It also allowed me to look at the future and all of its possibilities. And it even allowed me to answer the question, where do I go from here? Thank you.
Thank you, Don. So at this time, we'll go into our table topics, however long it would end up being. And our table topics master for tonight is Cody.
All right. Great. So I took Lawrence's advice, and he wanted us to be on theme. So the word of the day was furlough, so I tried to make a theme. So we'll see how exciting this can be. And I do have a couple of other bonus ones if we make it through all these. So do I have any takers for the first question? All right, Don, you just gave a speech, so you're warmed up. All right. What is your opinion on the government shutdowns facing or forcing a furlough? A furlough is a leave of absence, and then as a verb to grant a leave of absence.
Thank you. What is my opinion of furloughs as it pertains to the government? Well, I'm uniquely situated to answer this question since I work for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and have been experienced furloughs 2 times. The most recent 2019 furlough did not affect me, however. We had passed our early budgets. However, with my work, I coordinate with a lot of other government agencies, many of whom were shut down, which did affect my work and completing my own job. So that made it very difficult. And at the same time, I was very understanding of what they were going through. Financial budgets and pertaining to the federal government are never really set in stone for the most part, and it's very hard to deal with. You just hope that you're not the one that's going to be furloughed, but you have to have sympathy for those that do. The political structure that goes in with the government shutdowns are complicated. I don't think that there's a real easy answer for any of it. I just wish that we could pass a yearly budget like we're required to. I'll talk all day on this stuff.
Oh, just a footnote since we're informal. Another thing is we try and always keep the
Spectrum full?
yes.
I know you're gonna say, as soon as I stepped away and he started getting up, I was like, oops.
It takes time.
Yep, I'll get it.
Okay, next question. All right, Maurice, can't hide.
Yeah.
If you were granted a paid furlough, what would you do with your time?
The question that has been posed to me, assuming that I was a government worker and was granted a paid furlough during a shutdown situation, or what would I do? Well, these are things that I would propose to do. Whether or not they will actually get done or not, that's another question. I would like to catch up on keeping the house clean and getting rid of all these papers. I just have a bad habit of collecting papers. And I do recycle. I go to the recycle bin every few weeks. But somehow I have a tendency to want to hold on to some paperwork longer than I should, and it piles up. Sometimes I have it strewn on the table. I have a box there, I said, where I put stuff I want to take to recycling, but there's still more papers strewn around the box that I need to put in. Another thing is I want to finish redoing my body side molding. The tape, I guess it wore out and it slowly came off the side of the car. I think it's been off for about a year now. And I'm trying to scrape off the old tape. I bought some new double-sided tape, but I'm having a hard time scraping off the old tape. And, I thought at one time I would just go ahead and stick it over the old stuff, but no, I'll try the best I can to scrape that stuff off. And little things like that around the house, and also finish my deck. I did get started on it in 17. I missed 18. I mean, I stripped the paint, I guess, in 17 and part of 18, but I'm still behind on that. So those are just a few things that I think I would do if I were given a paid furlough, Mr. Topic Master.
Okay.
I guess this is my turn.
Yeah. Give you the good one. What is the best way to furlough someone who works for you?
Thank you, Cody. Fellow Toastmasters. That's a topic I've thought about a bit. Fortunately, that's never something I've had to do directly. I've been a manager for around 15 years now, but I've never had to directly fire someone. I've always been a project manager or a product manager where you had some organizational authority, but you didn't necessarily have any direct reports. And the only time that came up for me, I remember I had an employee that I was working with but was reporting to someone at a higher level in the organization, and it was clear that this guy needed to be let go. There needed to be a change. It was the right thing to do, and I wondered how I would feel about that situation when it came up, because it just seems like such a terrible thing to do to someone. But in this situation, of course I didn't have to deliver the news, but it was clear that this was the right thing to do, and it didn't distress me that this needed to happen. I can say though that it's still something that I wouldn't want to do. I wouldn't want to pass that news along. I've had to have people removed from project teams for different reasons, for one reason or another, but never had to actually let someone go. And I hope it's something I don't have to do, but it's part of business in the workplace to some extent also.
That's right.
Mr. Topics Master.
You do some. Anybody want to go here? All right. Do you think that getting furloughed could be a blessing in disguise in some situations?
Is it possible for it to be a blessing in disguise to be furloughed? Yes, indeed. We have had, on at least a couple of occasions of being furloughed, we have had numerous individuals during that shutdown have further offers solicited from either outside private organizations or even within the state that eventually turned out to be a new career path for those individuals. They took advantage of it and was able to see it through. So in that case, I think it was probably a forced career change that probably needed to happen to begin with. So that made that happen, where a lot of times complacency will set in and some people will just stay put because it's comfortable. And sometimes those kinds of moves can force a change that is needed, and that could be beneficial, so it has happened.
Think it done? All right, Maurice, this one's for you. I'm not saying that you're a criminal that I picked you for this one, because this is the other meaning of furlough. If you had just spent 20 years in jail and you were finally furloughed, what would be the first thing you do?
Okay, the question that was posed to me is, if I had just got out of jail after 20 years and been furloughed, what would be the first thing that I would do? Now, the answer to that question depends on how hard the criminal I was and how much recovery I got, or how much rehabilitation I got during my prison time. Let's just assume that I'm a medium level criminal and got high level rehabilitation. What I would do when if I am released from prison, I would look for my family if they still can be found. If I can still contact them. As a matter of fact, there is a YouTube channel called The After Prison Show. And there's one guy featured, he's been in jail for 40 years. So from 76 to 2016. And they had rotary dial phones when he went to jail, and when he came out of jail, he had to learn how to use a smartphone, had to learn how to use several devices that we find to be simple. So that's some of the process that he had to go through, and as far as I know, he's still out of jail. and he's got a job as a carpenter, and he got support from the YouTube channel because the person on the YouTube channel, he's been in jail for 7 years, so he's helping people who's been in prison for whatever amount of years. But again, to my question, if I get furloughed, I'll seek family and then move from there. Mr. Topics Master.
Thank you, Marie. That's a tough one to think about. That's crazy, 40 years.
Yeah.
And it's like you were stuck in that time period when you went in. And
Yeah.
wow, that's insane. All right, Justin, do you think a company that never furloughed anyone would work? It's a company that never fired or let go of anyone. Is that possible?
Thanks, Cody. That's a tough one. I think that any large organization would not work that way, could not work that way. And there's lots of good reasons for that. The economy and markets changes with time, technology changes with time. So a company is not going to need the same people that it hired on. You couldn't. You have to trim down and become more efficient and adapt as markets change. Look at Kodak. Could Kodak still employ their peak workforce today? Their markets it just doesn't exist anymore. But I think there are some special examples where that could happen. You could have a very, very small company, just a handful of people, maybe a family-run company, a law firm, something like that, where you're sole proprietor or a couple of employees, very tight-knit, that perhaps could survive without letting people go. But any decent-sized or normal company, that's just part of business. You have to trim people at the right time, and you have to bring in new people that have the right skill set to make a company work, and let those people go do something where they can be more productive. Mr. Topics Master.
All right, thank you, Justin. Thanks, Justin. Okay, we got two more. I think we have time. All right, these aren't related to furlough, so feel free to volunteer if anyone wants to go. Okay. You've been in Mobile for some time, so I'm sure you've had one of these. What is your favorite moon pie flavor and why?
What is my favorite moon pie flavor and why? I have been down here for some time and have frequented many parades, especially with the kids. And I would have to say just the classic. The classic is my favorite. I've had others, maybe it's for other reasons that I don't necessarily like those as much because they've been crushed, trampled on. Might have been a little bit on the old side, maybe 3-4 years running now, recycled overuse. But I will have to say that if you do take a classic one and you microwave it for about 11 seconds, then it hits the spot just right.
That's the secret. That's the secret. Thank you. Okay, last table topics.
So is it back to me or is it back to him?
Anybody that wants to.
Oh, okay.
I'll go.
All right, Justin.
All right.
What did you want to grow up to be as a kid?
Thanks, Cody. That's a good topic. I like that one. That's a bit of a fun topic. I went through phases as a kid on what I wanted to be when I grew up. And it's good that I went through those phases because I definitely should not have stuck with the first early decisions. One of the early ones I remember is I wanted to be a comedian, which would not have worked out very well. But I remember watching comedians as a kid, and it just seemed like such a great job to go up and tell jokes. And I practiced delivering very bad jokes, poorly timed to my parents, and they entertained me by laughing at these horrible jokes, and the rest of my family did also. Some of the other phases I went through, I wanted to be an astronaut at one point, pretty small highly selective option there, a little dangerous. Glad it didn't go that direction. Though that would have been pretty awesome. Probably wouldn't have made it as an astronaut either. Later on, I wanted to be an aerospace engineer because I'd always been really fascinated with aviation and space projects also. And I had an uncle as a teenager who visited and he was a mechanical engineer. And he coached me a bit shortly before I was leaving off for college and said, you know, aeronautical engineering is maybe a little specialized. You ever thought of being a mechanical engineer? You could do aerospace stuff, but it would give you a more broad field to go into, broader market for job opportunities. So that was good advice. I rolled with that, and it seems to have worked out pretty well, Mr. Topics Master.
Thank you, everyone. Great table topics. I know we had a small crowd, but we rallied and everybody got a lot of lectern time. I'll now relinquish the lectern back to our Toastmaster, Maurice.
All right, thank you. It is time for our general evaluation. And our general evaluator for tonight will be Justin.
Maurice? So we'll start out with an evaluation of Don's speech. As Don's first speech is icebreaker. Let me start by saying that I thought it was great for an icebreaker. You were very comfortable and confident at the lectern. You have a very clear and concise speaking style. I did not notice any filler words at all during your speech. And as far as the topics that you went through, I like how the speech was framed around having clear goals and improving yourself. Often people will do kind of a chronological just overview of their life. That's kind of the generic icebreaker. But I liked how you framed it together with a theme about looking forward and improving yourself and looking and making some change. So that was a good variation on some of the other approaches that I've seen. One thing that I did notice in your style and how you present yourself at the podium, and a lot of people do this, you do tend to rock back a bit. You shift your weight from one side to the other, and you look very confident and comfortable at the lectern, except for that one habit. So even though visually you don't look nervous at all, but you are doing that kind of unintentional movement. And then another thing is your speaking style at times would appear very fluid, as if you were just talking to us. But then there were also times when you'd refer back to your notes and you'd go into the speaking style that was a little more choppy. I don't exactly know how to describe it, but it was clear that you were reading from your notes. And if you've ever seen speeches where this is an extreme example, but a high school student might be giving a speech and reading directly from the notes, and the style tends to be very choppy, as if you're reading directly from the notes. It wasn't that extreme, but I could hear some of that going on also. So I'm not saying I'm the best example of this, but it's good to have the speech and the speaking style feel more conversational and at ease, rather than reading precisely from the notes. But for an icebreaker, excellent start. Just had those few comments to relay, and yeah, excellent first effort there. So I'm looking forward to hearing some more speeches from you, Don. So let's move on to the rest of the reports. Let's hear from Cody on the timers report.
All right. Don, your speech was 6 minutes and 16 seconds, so good job. Your first table topic was 54 seconds. Maurice, your first table topic was 2 minutes and 22 seconds. Justin, your first one was 1 minute and 29. Don, your second table topic was 50 seconds. Maurice, your second was 1 minute and 20. Justin, your second was 1 minute and 14. Don, your third and final was 40 seconds. And Justin, your third table topic was 1 minute and 31 seconds.
Okay, thank you, Cody. Moving on to the yacht counter and the grammarian report, this is where I didn't pay as much attention as I should. It's a little difficult to multitask on that, but I will say that Don, during his speech, I didn't notice any filler words at all. I didn't notice any grammatical mistakes. Very impressed with that. I know I tend to use a lot of filler words, so I didn't manage to count all the ones that I used during my table topics. I did notice, Don, during your table topic, you used one that was the only one that I got. I'm sure there were others that I didn't get in my notes, and I know I used a few filler words during my journal evaluation, speech evaluation. So then moving on to the general evaluation, bit of a holiday tonight, party day tomorrow, party day tonight, there's parades going downtown. So we did have our meeting, which is great, lightly participated, but that's fine. We made a good effort of it, I think a worthwhile meeting. I'll wrap it up there, and I'll turn it back to our Toastmaster. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no educational overview tonight, no awards tonight, even though we have one coming for Cody, his level 1, he successfully completed. And with that, I will relinquish the lectern back to the president.
Thank you, Bruce. Don, one thing, I just changed your pathway to leadership development. I'm not sure which one you picked, but you can go in and change it back. I just had to pick something so I could print the agenda off. Do you know what pathway you ended up going with?
I think it was dynamic leadership.
Okay. Yeah, if you
I
want
followed that little questionnaire assessment thing.
Right, yeah,
And that was recommended.
the dynamic, okay. So I'll change it back to dynamic,
Okay.
so that way I'll keep track of it.
I'm still trying to work out that whole system on how it all works.
Yeah,
There's a
between
main-
Easy Speak and Pathways, it's even more complicated.
There's a Toastmasters, and then there's Toastmasters Pathway. It's almost like a separate,
It is a separate
it's a separate
website.
thing.
Yeah.
And so, alright.
Yeah, it's a pop up and then it goes, yeah, you're in a different window, so. But, yeah, between that and Pathways, or Easy Speak, should be linked up and then we keep track of it on both. Okay. I have no further news. We're gonna end a little early tonight, that's fine, so you can go, maybe catch a move by. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
For the meeting.